Alright, in this lesson we're going to cover how to take our image out of Maya after we render it in Arnold, export it as an EXR and bring it into Nuke, and we'll shuffle out the different AOVs and color correct on those, do some roto, and then put it back together for a composite. So let's go ahead. I've got my my Arnold render view right here, the scene that I've rendered out. I've kind of taken it through a few iterations here and finally settled on this. This is actually an incorrect gamma setting right here. If you're having this issue, sometimes the sRGB gamma gets shut off. If that's the case, if this is grayed out here and you don't have this on-off blue kind of toggle right here button, you can come under your Windows, Settings and Preferences, and under Color Management, you want to make sure that Enable Color Management is checked on. Okay, this keeps everything set correctly for a linear workflow, which is what Nuke recognizes. Okay, so just make sure this is on when you do your renders, and we'll come over here under File, and we're going to use Save Multi Layer EXR, and I'm going to just set that under my project folder here under Images, and I've got a few different versions over here. This is going to be version C, and saving that. And then I'm just going to come over here and bring up Nuke here. Okay. So this is just a non-commercial version that I'm using. It's a free download that you can get on the Foundry. And if this is your first time in Nuke, just a quick run through here of the different panes that we have. This is the viewport where we're going to be seeing our image come up here. We're not seeing anything because we haven't imported our image or sequence. It also defaults at 2K Super 35, which is a full aperture film format, which is pretty common. Over here, this is where we're going to have our properties. Once we have something in here to look at, our properties will come up over here that we can edit. And then down here is just our node graph that we'll be using. There's also a curve editor and a dope sheet. These are used more for animation sequences. And then we've got our toolbar along the side here that I don't use too much. You can use a right mouse click to access a lot of things that you would otherwise use over here in the toolbar. And also down here in the node graph, you can hit the tab key, and that will bring up a lot of the most frequently used different nodes that you'll need. The first one I'm going to use is read. That's the one that comes up right here. R is also the hotkey for that. And I'm already navigated out here into my folder, and I'm going to grab that EXR that I wrote out and say open. And we're still not seeing anything other than the properties over here. They came up. So anytime you have a node highlighted, you'll see the properties come up over here. But we need to connect our viewer in order to see it here in the viewport. So I'm just going to click and drag this arrow over the node and let it go. And we can now see the image. It also changed the resolution here to HD 720, which is the format I used over in Maya. Okay, so we've got this set up. Let's come over here and we can view our different AOVs that we set up. So this is a direct diffuse, subsurface right here, direct subsurface, specular pass. Let's see, another one, indirect diffuse here. So this would be our bounce light essentially. Okay, so we can see all the different AOVs over here. I'm just going to set it back to RGBA, okay, which is the beauty pass. So what we're going to do is shuffle out all of those from this EXR, and we're going to do that with the shuffle node. So I'm just going to hit the tab key and start typing in shuffle, and there it is. And you can see it connected right in between there because I had this node highlighted and attached to that one, which is fine. So as soon as I click on that, the properties will come up for it over here, and I'm going to select under this pull down right here, our first one. I'm just going to basically go down the list here and make a node for each one of these. So direct diffuse is going to be the first one. And over here under this little node tab where it says label, right now we're just seeing shuffle 1. And if we want to kind of keep track of what is each one of these shuffle nodes are, instead of just a number, we can type in a label here. So this is direct diffuse. And I'm just going to shorten it like that. I think that was direct diffuse. Yes. Okay. All right. And you can see that now on the node right here. We've got direct diffuse. Okay, and I'm just going to, actually I can just copy and paste this. So copy, and I'm going to come over here and just click in the graph, node graph, and then do a paste. That way it will just not attach to anything. Okay, so for shuffle 2, I'm going to double click on that to open up the properties and come under the pull down here and go down to the next one. So direct specular, and under the node, for the label here, I'm just going to give it direct spec. Okay, and then I'm going to copy and paste this. And you can see that I just attached it on there. So just pulling that off and double clicking on this one to open it up and selecting the next one, which is direct SSS, subsurface scatter. Changing the label. Okay, and copy and paste. And you can also see what I'm doing here. I'm attaching each one of these to this input node. But if I had to say delete this, or I wanted to hook up a different image to this, I'd have to reattach all of these connections right here, which is not a lot of fun. It kind of slows you down. There's something that we can put in between here to attach it to. It's called a dot. So I'm just clicking over here in the flow graph and hitting the tab key and typing in dot. And dot is mostly just for organization and connecting things. It allows you to kind of clean up your flow graph as well. So I'm just going to drag these all over here and attach them to the dot, and then bring the dot over here and attach that to our read-in file. Okay. Just going to move these over here. We've got a few more to put in. Okay, so we left off with the subsurface scatter. I'm going to just copy that, paste it, attach it to the dot, double click on it, and come under and grab indirect diffuse. Okay, and just type in that label. Okay. Alright, and next we've got our indirect specular. Okay, and we're just about done here. This is sort of the longest part when you've got an EXR, is to shuffle out all of the different passes that you did, and once they're out, everything else goes pretty quick after that. This is just sort of the longest setup here. And let me double click on that. You'll also notice that all the other ones are stacking up in here. You can come over here and just click on the X button and get rid of those. You can also set this up in your preferences that it only holds the last 5 or so in here. Otherwise they just continue to build up. Okay, so this is our indirect subsurface scatter. Oops, one too many S's there. Okay, and copy and paste. And let's see what we've got left here. We've got specular. And I think this is our last one. So we've got our subsurface scatter, okay? And just do that. All right. So I'm just going to pull these over here, create a little bit more space, and I'm just using my middle mouse to drag this over and navigate. You can also see a small navigation window down here. You can use that to kind of push things around. But other than that, it's if you've got a wheel, you can use the wheel to zoom in and out. Okay. All right, so let's kind of reconnect this over here and put this at the end and kind of see what each one of these looks like. And you'll see just kind of, clicking and dragging this over here takes a little bit of time. There's actually a shortcut for that. If I just click on a node and I hit the 1 key, that will put the viewer on that particular node. Okay, so it's a much faster way of doing that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to unpre-multiply this, set up a color correction, and then pre-multiply it back together. And this is more of a process that you use when you are compositing an A over B, where you've got a foreground like this that you're going to composite over a background, and it's got an alpha channel. But I like to just sort of do that as good measure. It's sort of a good habit to get into and use that workflow. If you don't unpre-multiply and you do a color correction without doing that, because of the linear workflow, you'll end up with little tiny kind of dark lines. If you zoom way in, you'll see like a little edge around your composite. Okay, and again, we're not really going to see that here because we've got a complete scene where we're not really compositing, each one of these over a background. Okay, but let's just go ahead and set it up that way. I'm going to click on this first node over here and hit the tab key, and I'm going to type in un. And so we've got unpre-mult. Okay, and then I'm just going to copy, and I'm going to just go right down the line here and paste them on like that. Okay, and then over here I'm going to highlight that, hit the tab key, and we're going to do a color correction all the way down here. And same thing, I'm going to copy, and I'm just going to click on the unpre-mult over here and paste. So I'm just pasting all the way down here. Okay, and we're going to multiply it back together. So the tab key and pre-mult, copy that, and we're just going to go down here. Okay. All right, so we've got that set up, and let's go ahead and bring all of these back together. So we've just split all these out, and we're going to bring them all back together with a plus node. So I'm going to type in plus, and this allows us to bring in all these different AOVs, the different passes here, into one node and put them back together. So I'm just going to click and drag here, and you can pretty much stack as many as you want. So I'm going to go from this one and pull out this way. It's a little easier. Okay, and the last one here. Okay. All right, so we've got that, and I'm just going to kind of clean this up a little bit. And if we look at this one here, and I mean, ideally this should look the same. I think there's a little bit of variation with the subsurface in here. So I'm going to hit 1, and we're seeing, yeah, the subsurface. I think I just probably pulled out one too many passes here. Let's see which one it is. So we've got this, we've got an indirect, we've got a subsurface, and we've got another one here that's got subsurface right here. So we've got 3 different subsurface components or AOVs coming in here, and I think that's causing it to look a little brighter. So you can kind of see the difference here. Everything else looks good. Actually, we're getting a little weirdness here on this our glass. Let me figure out which one that is. So that's coming, I think it's coming from there. All right, so yeah, we've got something just kind of a little strange going on there. I may have to roto out the problem and then kind of composite that back on top, which would be a good little exercise to do in here. Okay, so let's do a roto on this to fix that. And I'm just going to kind of zoom in here a little bit and pull this down. And I mean, it doesn't look that bad, but when I come back here and I look at my original, like this is a lot more cool than this. Actually, I'm losing a little bit of a few other little things in here too. I am losing my specular pass. Ah, well, that would explain it because it's not hooked up. There. Okay, so these look fine. The bottle still not so fine. And then I'm getting just some of the subsurface. I've got like 3 of those subsurface passes. So I think what I'll do is just kind of color correct some of those down. I think this one is contributing the most. I think that one's okay. And so that's the direct subsurface, and this is subsurface. Interesting. Let's just try taking this guy out of here. And then, okay, so it's still a little brighter. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on this color correct right here. I don't mind it brighter, but if I kind of look at my overall scene, the petals are just kind of popping out a little bit too much, and the grapes are just getting a little washed out. I'm going to come under the master level here for gain and just try pulling that down a little bit. And I can see it darkening right there. So I think I'm just going to pull it down 0.45. Okay, and it's still a little brighter. I don't mind it being brighter. I just don't want it. I'm trying to balance everything out here. And let's try bringing this one down a little bit too. Okay. So this is affecting the flower a little bit more, kind of the inside of the flower. And that area I actually want to bring up. I want it kind of a little bit more light passing through there. Okay. All right, so let's work on this bottle here and see if we can bring it back to this kind of original look. I'm going to save my scene before I start rotoing here, so I'm going to do save comp as, and I'm just going to save it out here in my directory. I should have made a Nuke directory here, but I didn't, so this is going to be my version 2. Okay, and it usually saves as .nk for Nuke. The NC after this is the non-commercial license, so this will not open up in a commercial license once you've worked in here, so just be aware of that. Okay, so I'm going to click over here, hit the tab key, and type in roto and grab this. And let me just let me double check my settings here, make sure this hasn't gone back to the default. I'm going to come under my project settings, and the format that we're using right now is still that 2K full app, so I'm going to make sure we're set to HD 720. This way my roto is the same size. And then just double click on here, should be good to go. And I'm just going to come in here and start clicking. So as you click and drag, you'll see the tangents come out. And I'm doing this fairly articulate. And just around here, I can come back and make some adjustments. obviously I'll make a little adjustment right there. Okay, and then I'm just going to click on the last one right here and close that and hit enter. And we should have that done. So there are just a couple little places here. I want to pull these out. And if I need to come back here and do adjustments, I'm not going to sit here and tweak this and make it perfect, because I don't think these outside areas right here had much change on them. It was just, I think it was just the material itself, the bottle. Okay. All right, so let's use that as our roto. Okay, and I'm going to take this over here and let's see, I'll use that. Here's my roto, and I'm gonna do a merge here. So tab, merge. So merge is kind of the way of compositing here. So we've got an A over B right now. I'm going to take the B and place that back over here and connect it. And then I'm going to take the roto and I'm going to plug it into, zoom in here so you can see that. These are the matte channels right here. If you start pulling, you'll see, actually it should say it right here. There we go. So mask, and to the output of this. Okay. And then let's take a look at that and see if these are in the right direction. So I'm just going to hit 1, and looks like we got the bottle back in over top there. Okay, so that fixed that. And let's kind of zoom in here. I'm not really seeing any edge issues. Okay, let me just come back out here and make a comparison. So I'm going to hit 1. So it's a little brighter, and 2. So it looks like it's just picking up a little bit of reflectivity on here. There's some transparency in that. And I don't mind it. I actually think it's picking up a reflection of the pink flower right here, which I kind of like. So just step back here and take a look at that. Yeah, I actually think it's sitting in there quite nice right now. Okay, so the last thing I want to do, I want to just kind of create a little bit of a vignette around here and just sort of darken down this corner right here where there's not a lot happening, this little area right here, and maybe just the little corner piece of this wall. Okay, so I'm just going to create another roto. Hit tab, do roto, and grab that, bring it over here, and I'm just going to draw around like this and across the bottom, outside over here, and then I don't really think I want it affecting anything else, and then enter. Okay, and then you'll notice on these the points here, there's a little pole that sticks out. If you grab that and pull it, you'll see this little dotted line coming out here. This is actually a way of fading out or tapering off the edge of the roto, so it's not a hard edge anymore. Okay, so I'm just going to click on that, actually pull this in here like that, and then fade it off. Same thing here. Okay, and then just pull that one down too, so we have a nice kind of even fade right there. And like that, and So I think that's good. Let's take a look at that. We're going to have to invert this because right now it's going to darken down the inside. Let's do a color correction, and ideally we should be kind of doing this whole process right here, but we're just kind of color correcting the whole thing here instead of pulling the individual AOVs out. So I'm just going to select this, hit the tab key, and do color correct. Okay, we've got that, and then I'm going to take the roto and I'm going to drag it over here to where it says mask and attach that. And if I come over here and I start pulling down the gain, you're going to see it's darkening in the center, which we don't want. So let's invert this. So I'm going to hit tab, and there's an invert node. Okay, so that switches it around. And if I grab the color correct now and I start pulling this down, you'll see how it darkens down around the outside there. And I'm just kind of over exaggerating it right now. I want a little bit more of a fall off on here, so I'm going to go back to the roto and grab these and pull them out a little bit more. And now I can kind of see sort of interactively what's going on. And maybe this one out a little bit more. Okay, bring that in like that. Okay, so that looks good. It looks a little better there. Maybe this one here too. Okay, and then click on here and bring this back. Okay, I feel like this is still a little dark up here in the corner. So I'm actually going to move that out like that. Okay. All right, so that looks good. I think I'm happy with that. Okay, and I'm going to write my image out now. So I'm just going to select the last node in the graph here, hit the tab key, and the first two that come up automatically are read and write. So the second one down here is write. Okay, and the properties up here come up. So we're going to output the file here just by selecting this. It's going to bring up the window, and I'm going to just type in Art 487E, still life comp, and I'll just put version 2 here. Okay, we'll say save. So we've got a directory path now where it's going to write out. And the file type, I'm going to write out JPEG. Okay, and the quality, I want to take that all the way up. And for the subsampling, I want to make sure it's on 444. So select that. And if we right mouse click over here and we say render, there is a shortcut for that too. It's the F7 key. It doesn't always work on a Mac unless you have your keys set up to do that. So you can just access it through here. We're just going to render the selected right node. Okay. And we're not using a proxy, so make sure that is off, and go ahead and click OK. And we can come out here and check and see where it wrote out. So I'm just coming back up here to images, and we come back over here. So we've got JPEG. Oh, that's it right here. You actually have to, I think, put JPEG in here. So type in the extension here, .jpeg, hit save. Let's try this again. So I'm just going to render that out, hit OK, and come back out here, and there it is. Okay, so make sure you put your extension on there. And we'll double click that, and there you have it. Okay, so that wraps up this lesson for compositing the still life.